The zipper caught halfway up her back, and for one suspended moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped. My fingers froze, not because of the dress, but because of the quiet tears gathering in my neighbor's eyes. I had expected an awkward favor before a charity gala. I never imagined that fastening a simple zipper would become the beginning of the most unforgettable evening of my life. If you believe kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them today. My name is Nathan, and I had lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Asheville, North Carolina, for nearly 8 years. I repaired antique furniture for a living, enjoying the peaceful rhythm of sanding old wood and giving forgotten things another chance. My next-door neighbor, Grace, had moved in only 6 months earlier. She was always polite, always smiling, yet there was a sadness behind her eyes that never quite disappeared. We exchanged friendly waves while collecting the mail, occasionally shared homemade cookies over the fence, but neither of us crossed the invisible line between neighbors and friends. That Saturday afternoon, Grace knocked softly on my front door wearing a beautiful navy blue evening dress she clearly wasn't comfortable in. She apologized for interrupting my weekend and explained that the zipper had become stuck. There was no one else she felt comfortable asking. It seemed like the smallest request in the world, so I smiled and invited her inside. As I carefully worked the zipper upward, I noticed her shoulders trembling. She stared out my living room window as though gathering courage. When the zipper finally slid into place, I stepped back, expecting her to thank me and leave for whatever elegant event awaited her. Instead, she remained perfectly still. After several long seconds, Grace quietly confessed that she hadn't really come because of the zipper. She had come because she didn't know where else to go. Her husband, Michael, had passed away almost a year earlier after a sudden illness. Since then, she had buried herself in work, convinced that staying busy would somehow silence the loneliness. Tonight's charity fundraiser had been organized by the hospital where Michael had spent his final weeks. Everyone expected her to attend. Everyone expected her to smile. Everyone believed she was finally healing. The truth was completely different. She admitted she had spent nearly an hour sitting in her car outside her house, unable to force herself through the front door after getting dressed. Looking at herself in the mirror reminded her of the last formal event she had attended with Michael. She realized she couldn't face the evening alone, so she remembered something he used to tell her whenever they met kind people. He always said that when life became too heavy, the safest place to knock was the door of someone who still believed people mattered. For reasons she couldn't explain, she believed that door belonged to me. Her words left me speechless. I wasn't a counselor or a pastor. I was simply a furniture restorer who happened to live next door. Yet in that moment, I understood that sometimes people don't need perfect advice. They simply need someone willing to stay. Instead of offering easy answers, I made fresh coffee. We sat on the porch as the late afternoon sun settled behind the Blue Ridge Mountains. Grace shared stories about Michael's endless jokes, their volunteer work at the local food pantry, and the dreams they never had time to finish. She laughed through tears as she remembered how he always danced terribly in the kitchen whenever their favorite song came on. For the first time since I'd met her, I wasn't seeing a lonely widow. I was meeting a woman whose heart was still full of love, even after tremendous loss. As evening approached, Grace admitted she still didn't know whether she could attend the fundraiser. Then, something unexpected happened. My elderly friend Walter stopped by to return a toolbox he had borrowed. Hearing only part of our conversation, he quietly said something neither of us would ever forget. He reminded us that honoring someone isn't about pretending the pain has disappeared. It's about allowing their kindness to keep living through us. Those simple words changed everything. Grace asked if I would accompany her, not as a date, but simply as a friend. We walked into the fundraiser together. She still cried during the memorial presentation, but this time she wasn't alone. Several former nurses recognized her and embraced her. Families she and Michael had once helped came over to thank her. One young father explained that Michael had secretly paid for his daughter's medication years earlier, never asking for recognition. Grace realized that the love she thought she had lost had actually continued growing in the lives of countless strangers. Months passed, and our neighborhood slowly became more than a collection of houses. Grace revived Michael's dream of organizing monthly community dinners where everyone brought food to share, especially welcoming anyone who lived alone. I volunteered every month, repairing donated furniture for families starting over after difficult seasons. The gatherings grew larger with every passing season, creating friendships that spread far beyond our little street. One evening, Grace smiled and admitted that asking me to zip her dress had been the hardest thing she'd done since losing Michael. She hadn't needed someone to fix her life. She had simply needed someone willing to open a door. Before this story comes to an end, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell us about a small act of kindness that changed your life, or perhaps a moment when someone simply showed up when you needed them most. Looking back, I often think about how ordinary moments quietly become extraordinary memories. A stuck zipper lasted less than a minute. The conversation that followed changed 2 lives forever. It reminded me that compassion rarely arrives with grand speeches or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it begins with answering a knock at the door, offering a chair on the porch, and choosing to stay long enough for someone to remember they are not carrying their burdens alone. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the incredible power of simple kindness, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who may need hope today, and subscribing for more heartfelt stories. May we all become the kind of neighbor whose door someone feels safe enough to knock on when they have nowhere else to turn.